South Africa is in trouble. When criminals wear the very same uniform that is supposed to protect us, when police officers exchange their oath of duty for a share of stolen cash, then ordinary citizens are left asking, who can we trust? In Limpopo, a shocking case has exposed just how deep the rot inside the South African police service has gone. A police constable, sworn to uphold the law, has been arrested alongside 2 suspects for a brazen business robbery. At the same time, in a different part of the country, another tragedy unfolded when a community, tired of crime and distrustful of the justice system, turned to mob justice, beating a man to death after accusing him of housebreaking. These 2 incidents may seem separate, but they tell the same painful story. South Africans are losing faith in the police, and as a result, the line between law enforcement and lawlessness is disappearing. The Limpopo case begins with a small business, a store in Gioni D2. On Friday, the store was targeted in what police later described as a well-planned robbery. But this was not the work of hardened gangsters from the shadows. No, among the perpetrators was a man wearing the uniform of the state. A constable from the Thohoyandou Public Order Police, who should have been protecting citizens, instead chose to terrorize them. Police spokesperson Brigadier Hlulani Mashaba detailed how it unfolded. The suspects, aged between 26 and 38, arrived at the shop under the false pretense of carrying out an inspection. They told the shop owner they were checking for expired food. But in reality, this was nothing but a cover for theft. Once inside, they threatened the complainant and stole money from the till counter. To make matters worse, the constable tried to disguise the robbery as an official operation, even using a police reflector jacket to appear legitimate. Think about the level of betrayal here, a police uniform, meant to symbolize law, order, and trust, being used as a weapon of fear. But the criminals underestimated one thing: the community was watching. Local residents quickly realized what was happening. They saw through the lies. And they were not willing to allow criminals to escape unchallenged. The crowd gathered outside, and one suspect in the police reflector jacket was cornered. At that moment, the plan began to crumble. The getaway car, meant to help the suspects escape, was driven by none other than the police constable. But when his accomplice was caught, the constable made a desperate move. He abandoned his role as the getaway driver and instead tried to pose as a victim. He walked into the police station claiming that his car had been stolen. He even pretended to open a case, saying he did not want to press charges because the supposed thief was his friend. It was a pathetic attempt to distance himself from the crime, but it didn't work. Investigators soon discovered the truth. His story fell apart, and he was arrested along with the other suspects. The evidence was damning. Police recovered a 1020 in cash as well as the reflector jacket. 3 suspects, including the constable, were arrested for business robbery. They are expected to appear before the Gioni Magistrates Court on Monday, August 18, 2025. Now, let's pause here and ask the bigger question: how many times has this happened before, but gone unnoticed? If a police officer is willing to rob a shop in broad daylight, dressed in uniform, how many other crimes are being committed under the shield of authority? South Africans already know the answer: too many. This is not an isolated case. Every year, we hear reports of police officers involved in hijackings, drug trafficking, cash-in-transit heists, and even political killings. The rot runs deep, and every new revelation chips away at public trust. And when that trust disappears, ordinary citizens take matters into their own hands. That brings us to Petsena Township in Rights, where another tragedy played out. On Monday, a man accused of housebreaking was brutally attacked by community members. When police officers arrived, they found him surrounded by a crowd, severely injured. Allegations of theft had sparked anger, and instead of handing him over to the police, the community decided to deliver what they saw as instant justice. The man later died from his injuries. Mob justice is not new in South Africa. From the rural villages of Limpopo to the townships of Gauteng, people have grown so frustrated with crime and so disillusioned with the justice system that they now act as judge, jury, and executioner. But let's be clear, mob justice is not justice. It is violence. It is murder. And while some may see it as a way to fight back against criminals, it only creates more bloodshed and more chaos. These two stories, the corrupt constable in Limpopo and the deadly mob attack in Rights, are connected. They show us a society in crisis. When the police themselves become criminals, the people lose faith in the system. And when people lose faith in the system, they take the law into their own hands. It's a vicious cycle, and it is tearing South Africa apart. Imagine being a shopkeeper in Limpopo. You work hard to earn a living, only to be robbed by the very people you thought you could call for help. Imagine being a resident in Petsena. You've reported crimes before, but nothing happened, and now you believe the only way to stop thieves is to beat them to death. This is not how a society should function. The South African Police Service likes to speak about zero tolerance for corruption. Every year, we hear about disciplinary measures and promises of reform. But South Africans are tired of words. They want action. They want accountability. They want to know that when they see a police uniform, it still means safety, not danger. And it's not just about rogue constables or reckless mobs. It's about leadership. Where are the senior officers when their subordinates abuse power? Where are the consequences when police-issued firearms end up in the hands of criminals? Where is the accountability when communities are left to fend for themselves? Lieutenant General Themba Hadebe, the provincial commissioner in Limpopo, will no doubt release statements condemning the robbery. The Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cluster will urge communities not to take the law into their own hands. But statements are not enough. Without real reform, without real punishment for corrupt officers, and without serious investment in crime intelligence, these tragedies will keep happening. South Africans are left trapped between two fears, the fear of criminals, and the fear of corrupt police. In Limpopo, the shopkeeper who was robbed may never again trust anyone wearing a badge. In Rights, the family of the man who was killed may never again believe in the idea of due process. And across the country, millions of ordinary people continue to live with the daily reality that safety is no longer guaranteed. So where do we go from here? First, there must be consequences for the Limpopo constable. If convicted, he must not only be dismissed from SAPS but face the full weight of the law. Too often, officers are quietly removed from service without serving prison time. That must end. Second, the government must confront the epidemic of mob justice by addressing the root cause, the public's lack of faith in the justice system. Until communities believe that police will act swiftly and fairly, they will continue to act violently. And third, SAPS leadership must be held accountable for the corruption in their ranks. It is not enough to scapegoat a single constable. Senior officials must face scrutiny when the system repeatedly fails. South Africa cannot survive in a state of lawlessness, where uniforms no longer command respect and justice is replaced by revenge. We are witnessing the collapse of trust in the police, trust in the courts, and trust in the state itself. And unless something changes, the tragedies of Limpopo and Petsena will only multiply. This is not just about one robbery or one mob attack. It is about the future of law and order in South Africa. So tonight, as you reflect on these stories, ask yourself, do you still trust the police? And if you don't, what does that mean for the safety of our nation?